The 12 Days of Christmas in 2019 was pretty good too. But All I Want for Christmas, So Icy, 2021. That's the one I like.
Okay. There you go.
Matthew Presley says, I love the Bad News Brown character. He had charisma and believability. Do you and Conrad believe the WWF could have done more with him? Tony, what say you? What about Bad News? Could he have had a bigger run in the WWF?
Oh, I think anybody can have if anybody would put the time and effort into your character, you can have a bigger run. I'm not so sure. Do you remember when Roddy Piper had the half black face?
I do, yes, sir.
Yeah,
WrestleMania 6.
right. I just wonder if that just I don't know if you think that could have hurt Bad News in any way at all.
I don't think so. I mean, I could be wrong. I mean, if anything, that would hurt Piper, right? That wouldn't.
Yeah, it was hard to hurt Piper because he was such a big star. I don't know.
Well, I would hate to think that another guy doing something that was risky could hurt Bad News. Bad News didn't do anything.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's hard to put. And again, I'll go back to the thing that you can have a better run with anybody if you just put time and effort in their character. And I don't know what the metrics were back then for saying, okay, he's a big star. Maybe it was house show
Working with
attendance.
Hogan. I mean, that's probably it, right? Ticket
Yeah,
sales with Hogan.
right. That would be it. Yeah.
And he did work with Hogan.
Did he?
Yeah.
Did they have a program?
They did. But when you ask, if you remember, they had the helmet with the fist on it. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
Hulk Hogan wore like a war bonnet, I think is what they called it. But Bruce Pritchard called it a fist fucker helmet.
Uh-huh.
And he wrestled, I know for sure he wrestled Bad News with that fist fucker on. And to hear Hogan tell it, the issue was Bad News just didn't want to lose. He didn't want to put anybody over.
Well, then to answer your question, no.
So here it
He
is.
could have had a bigger run. Okay.
In the year 1989, November 13th,
Yeah.
Hogan and Bad News are main eventing in Roanoke, Virginia.
Okay.
The day before, they were headlining in Norfolk, Virginia.
Okay.
The day before that, they were headlining in Augusta, Georgia.
Oh, all right.
The prior month, they had headlined in Orlando and Uniondale, New York. They even worked on Saturday night's main event in February of that year from Hershey, Pennsylvania. They had a handful of matches in 88, including St. Paul, Minnesota, East Rutherford, New Jersey, Toronto, and even Wheeling, West Virginia. But you could actually trace their history all the way back to 1980 over in New Japan Pro Wrestling, where Bad News Allen was teaming with Hulk Hogan. That happened way back in 1980. They were tag team partners, Tony.
Wow. That's going way back.
I didn't know that either. By the way,
I
that
didn't either.
spin was something else.
Yeah.
You think there's any chance you could hit Lois with one of those after the turkey on Christmas Day?
I doubt it. I doubt it.
What's your go-to meal on Christmas Day? Do y'all do the turkey again or do something different?
We do something different. We sometimes I think we're going to go to. I know we've been invited to your house, and I really appreciate this. But I think we're going to go to Chris's house, and usually Chris's wife fixes a very nice dinner. She's really a good cook. And
Couple Hungry Man TV dinners again.
Yeah. Yes. Hungry Man. Yeah. The one with the dessert in the middle.
Salisbury steak.
Yep.
Yeah. Now I know that you like to eat. What's that sort of canned stew you like? What's the brand?
Denny Moore beef stew.
That's right. And you want to stir the load in, right? The load in the top. Matt Horner used to say it looked like somebody had jizzed right on the top of the stew. And you always advise just stir the jizz right in. Just stir it.
I don't remember that.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
How about Rick Rude here? I love when they do these. I mean, this is a green screen before we really called it that. What did you call this technology way back in 1989, Tony?
Well, it was a blue screen back in 1989.
Okay, well, I'm colorblind. You ain't got a goddamn show off.
Okay, yeah. Well, so anyway, so you saw the interview with the Macho Man, our King Macho Man, and Zeus and Sherry, right?
Yeah.
And it was on a gray background.
All right.
Then they had three. Actually, they had four backstage places to do interviews. They had one for the show, which they would fly in for the show, and that was the gray background. They had English 1 and English 2. Then they had internationals. English 1 and English 2 and international all had blue screens in them. And so that was done in one of the English ones while we were on the road. And here's another one, Hercules right here. English 1, English 2. It was so organized, and each place that we did pre-tape interviews had their own producer who sat there at a table and produced them, and the referees would run the guys there. It was just so organized back then. It was back in 1989. It was a well fucking oiled machine, buddy. It really was.
We heard some pre-recorded comments there from Rick Rude and Bobby Heenan, and they didn't really have much to say. Now we've got a promo from Hercules. Again, he's not doing much with his run in this era, but we're hearing from him.
Yeah.
Sean Mooney, look at his only he can look here, running the event center.
Mm-hmm.
And we're about to go to a golf course where we'll hear from the Genius and Mr. Perfect. Mr. Perfect is going to sink a hole in one. And then in between all that, he's making threats towards the WWF champion, Hulk Hogan. I have always believed that would have been almost like a dream scenario to set up a WrestleMania match with Hulk Hogan and Mr. Perfect. At this point in his run, Mr. Perfect is undefeated. He has a flawless record. He's not been pinned. He's not lost a match here in the WWE. And we know that ultimately he's going to wind up losing to the Ultimate Warrior, but it won't make air before WrestleMania. But at WrestleMania 6, he's going to lose to Brutus the freaking Barber Beefcake.
Wow.
I think you could have had him maybe somehow sneak attack Hulk Hogan, maybe when Hogan and Warrior are going nose to nose. Mr. Perfect tips them both out at the same time or something. He steals the Royal Rumble and he gets a shot at Hulk Hogan. I could totally see Hulk Hogan and Mr. Perfect at a WrestleMania, but it didn't happen. And when you take a look at the data, because Bruce and I have covered this, man, when they main evented Madison Square Garden, Mr. Perfect and Hulk Hogan, fans just didn't show up for it. It just did not draw as well. And that's so disappointing to me because in my mind's eye, Mr. Perfect was about as good of a heel as you could have had in the WWF in this era.
Yeah, he looked good. He could talk. Great physique. Handsome. And not only that, they did a lot of videos with him. They did him doing the hole in one. They did him shooting a 300 game in bowling. Remember that? And there was something else they did with him. Did a couple. And I thought the same thing. I thought he was going to be paired with Hogan. But again, just like, we got that question. Do you think Bad News Brown could have got a bigger push? What are the metrics? And I guess the metrics are a match that didn't draw, right?
Yeah.
If it doesn't draw, they're not going to stay with it long. I can tell you that.
Man, you're in for a real treat here. We got Bret the Hitman Hart in singles action here in 1989 against Greg the Hammer Valentine, who's got Jimmy Hart with him. This is from the Meadowlands Arena in Meadowlands, New Jersey. This is Tony Schiavone and Lord Alfred Hayes calling the action.